Hello, curling fans. We are back. Bet you didn't think you were going to get a special summer edition of the Broom Brothers, but here we are, John Cullen with you. It is June. That means it is Pride Month, and we thought it was very important given curling's sort of, well, we're going to talk about it in the chat on the panel, but curling does have this sense that we are leading the way in the LGBTQ plus space. And it's not just that we're doing lots of great things in that space, but it's also that we have amazing athletes and amazing voices in this space that are really doing great things. And we're pleased to be joined by four amazing athletes and people involved in the sport. Bruce Mouat, of course, you know, world champion. John Epping at multiple slams this year, had an amazing run, currently in the top 10 in the world. The new head of content for the curling group, reporter for CBC, curling's man on the scene extraordinaire, Devin Heroux, and Rachel Homan, Team Homan's second, Emma Miskew, all joining me for what was a phenomenal chat about being an LGBTQ plus athlete, reporter, ally, and the things that curling is doing, still needs to be doing, should be doing to continue ourselves as one of the premier sports in the LGBTQ plus community. So it's a great chat coming up with all four of them. I won't waste any more of your time. We're going to get into it. It's the Broom Brothers Pride panel right now. All right, I'm here. I'm joined by everyone: John Epping, Emma Miskew, Bruce Mouat, Devin Heroux. Very excited to hop into this Pride panel. And I'll do the same thing I did on the International Women's Day panel and start with an extremely broad question for all four of you. And John, maybe we'll start with you. What does pride in curling specifically mean to you?
Oh, that's great. I would say community. I think that our sport is doing such a great job with that, and I just think of when I think of, you know, all the gay leagues across the country that we have, it just makes me so proud.
It's nice. Bruce?
Well, very similar answer. In fact, I'm actually jealous of how amazing your Pride leagues have taken off in Canada, and I really want that to start in Europe or in Scotland, and hopefully we can grow it. Like, the community side of curling has always been something really special to me, and, you know, just having somewhere that you can go and really enjoy it with friends, and then obviously having curling being so inclusive, it's amazing to see.
Emma?
I'm really proud that I'm from a country where there are a lot of leagues where, like, pride leagues. There's the Ottawa Curling Club has a massive league, and that's our home club, and that makes me super proud. But everyone, just to be able to be themselves at all times and be a part of a sport where you feel like you can be yourself is amazing. And I think that curling is so unique that way.
Devin?
Well, firstly, let me say I'm thrilled to be with all of you guys, and happy Pride. For somebody like me who has struggled to find belonging in places in my life, I feel like curling has allowed me a space to belong. And I think in a lot of cases, it's home. It's like that warm blanket or sweater that we wear until it's falling apart, right? Like when I walk into a curling club, or there's a Pride night at the Players in Toronto, and you look around, it is belonging. It is being seen in a sporting domain where we haven't always been seen and accepted. And so I think it's like, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I think in a lot of cases, this is the stuff that can actually change lives, to show up at a sporting venue and go, oh my God, I belong in a place where I didn't think I did. So it's about belonging for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and that's beautiful, and that actually dovetails really well into my sort of first question. And John, I'm going to kind of direct this one at you, because I do think, you know, in a lot of ways, you're sort of the OG in the curling space, the guy that came out, sort of, at least on as far as like a prominent curler, you were in the top 10 in the world when you came out, and you still are. I want to talk a little bit about that journey for you. I know you've talked about it a lot, but maybe just give me like a little bit of a brief. How did you make the decision to come out? And then I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you've seen that kind of evolve over the last 10 years or so since you have come out. Like, do you think it's gotten easier? Has curling become more inclusive? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, there was no real plan of how I was going to approach it. I think there's always a plan with your, coming out to your friends and your family and the people close to you. And when it came to the curling side, I was really worried about my team and not coming out to them, but I would say in the media and how it would affect them and would they be bombarded with questions. And so I kind of held off for quite a while until an interview happened. And I know all the media outlets and all journalists, they knew, and they would ask me, can we be the first one to break your story? And they were very great in that and respectful that they didn't just go out with it without talking to me. And when that time came, I was just asked, can we talk about this now? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And I hope that it helped open some doors for youth and younger curlers to feel like they had a place in team sports at a top level. And then, you look to what Bruce is now and number one in the world. And, he's our poster boy. So it's great to, it's just great to see, because all these, you want to, as role models in the sport, or I guess your everyday person, we look to people that we can relate to. And, to have that now with Bruce at the top of the game, and how cool is that a young curler can aspire to be somebody like that. So that was always, in the back of my mind. I just wish it was me that was number one, but, but it's just great.
You just want to be the poster boy, John.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
we'll put you both on a poster if you want. We can have you back to back. Maybe we can do it.
I'm just gonna carry his brooms around. That's all. That's good. But it's and I think it's just been an unbelievable journey. And just to finish on that one, is that to all the questions of why did you have to do it? Why can't you just be John the curler? I wouldn't change it, because I know from all the private messages I've got from people that have needed some guidance to be a sounding board, some advice, that I wouldn't change it.
And Bruce, I want to jump off of that. Like, John obviously mentioning you and being, world number one and all the success you've had. Did John's story, like, were you aware of it? Did it kind of help you in any way? I mean, I know you're in Scotland at the time, but was John kind of a role model for you in a way?
Well, yeah, he was, but I didn't even know he was gay when he was a role model to me. Like, he was like one of the top teams that I remember watching in like the slams or even just in the tour events. And then I think I was probably about like 20, maybe 21 when I found out that John and Tom were together. And then I kind of like lost my mind. I was so excited. I knew that someone else in our community and at the top end of our game was openly gay, and it really inspired me. And I think I have shared this story with John before. It's just that his story and his journey was so inspiring, and it did open up the door for me to really think that I was able to do something like this, and just to be able to share it with my teammates, and for them to have my back and support me, and to know that the community were obviously supporting John. It made me feel really comfortable to come out and have the opportunities that I've had to this date.
And John has talked a lot about, and just brought it up here about the DMs that he's gotten. And I personally know curlers who have reached out to John and told me that story later, that John was, really instrumental in helping them. Has that happened for you now too? Or are you receiving these types of DMs and emails from people who are maybe looking for a little guidance?
Yeah, I've had a lot of emails and a lot of messages over Instagram or Facebook, just sharing their story, but it's not just like the individuals that are maybe going through it. It's also parents that are reaching out and saying like how nice it is to have visibility and to know that their kid, whether they are going to be gay or bisexual or whatever it is, that they have a space within our sport. And it's so humbling and kind of really nice to hear all the individuals that are saying it, but it's something special when your parents are saying it, because it's, that's the kind of fear that gay people sometimes have, that coming out to your parents, you're not going to be accepted. And that's one of the first, or maybe one of the first people that you would tell. And to know that parents are coming and saying these things about their kids even before they've maybe come out, it's really nice to hear.
Totally. And I want to ask you, Devin, this was really intriguing to me. And I think I hadn't thought about this before, but you had a tweet at the beginning of June, at the beginning of Pride Month, where you mentioned that you are one of the few openly gay sports reporters. And I thought that was really interesting, because I think we all can understand from an athlete's perspective the pressure to come out. There's the locker room, the boys, that kind of thing. Why do you think there's so few openly gay sports reporters? So that really like twigged for me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I think it's all sports. I think it is the hyper-masculine, toxic masculine, heteronormative space, right? And I want to say this while it's on my mind. We were joking about John and Bruce being poster boys, but I think it's important to point out that comes at a price, and there's a toll to that, because in sport, and there are a few high-profile, openly proud gay pro athletes, they become the token person. June comes around, and every year we're going to John and Bruce, and we're getting them to relive some really deep, vulnerable things. So I want to point that out, because they make it look easy, and there's such a beautiful energy they bring to their sharing, but it's not. It isn't. And so I want to commend Emma for being here. I think it's so incredibly important that, Emma, you're here. Your allyship is here. And I think it should serve notice to everybody in the curling space and the sporting space that it can't just be up to the few to continually have to carry that flag year in and year out. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. I came out in 2007 as a sports editor of the University of Saskatchewan newspaper when DMing wasn't really a thing. I got handwritten letters, which was a mind-blowing thing. And there was a lot of hate back then. But to Bruce's and John's point, I remember one of the letters I got was from a guy living in rural Saskatchewan whose dad was an RCMP officer. And he openly admitted that he just didn't think he would ever have a relationship with his dad, that he was going to go like most gays in Saskatchewan go. We leave for Vancouver, Toronto, and we in a lot of ways leave our life on the prairies behind. And he said, because of that article, he had told his dad, and he was forging a relationship for the first time in his life with his dad. Like, that's why we do this. That's why I do it. I do it every year. I'm getting better at it. But I mean, at 38 years old and having told my story a million different times, you still get this pang of like, holy shit, I'm about to put my life out there, and I don't know what this is going to be like. And I want to be emotionally centered when I do this, because you would have seen, John, at the end of that tweet, there was still hate. And there always will be. And I think all of us agree that's why we continue to do this.
Yeah, Emma, I do want to ask you about your allyship, but very quickly, like John and Bruce, just piggybacking off of what Devin said there, are those feelings that you share as well, that there is some some difficulty in talking about this, so constantly?
Well, I think for me, there's like a bit of pressure that comes with it. Like, I want to be saying the right things, or, portraying myself in a way that encourages others to want to feel comfortable. And there's always that kind of, moment where I'm being asked a question that's kind of going back to my childhood and remembering those kind of scary times. And, it wasn't a lot of fun to go through them. Like, obviously it was pretty tough to find yourself within those situations. So yeah, there's like times when I kind of like struggle with it, but I also see it as a bit of a privilege that like I've gone through such a hard time to then come out the other end and feel like I've achieved something great to then hopefully inspire other people.
John?
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, and I think maybe a bit with age, and it's been a while now that maybe I'm more the bull in the china shop, where I just want to protect people and make sure they're comfortable, and I try not to hold back anymore. Maybe I did a little bit before, but back to Bruce's point, yes, you're always a little bit you're thinking about what your next what you're going to say next a bit more, but. Brucey, as you get older, don't worry. I think that happens a little less. And
nice, Emma. Thank you. Sorry, I'm taking so long to get to you, but I agree with Devin. I mean, I think it is really important that you're here, and I think it is important for allies in the sport to show up, especially one as visible as yourself. I mean, I think most people would agree. Team Homan, probably the most visible team in the world at this point, and your team has really been out there as allies, through the United We Curl initiative and just supporting, out athletes and other LGBTQ plus causes. What went into your team's decision to do that? Is that like a discussion you have with your team? Like, what does that look like as far as we're a top team, but we're going to put ourselves out there as, we are allies and we're proud allies?
Yeah, well, I think it started with Gold Line and having a voice through them. But for us, it wasn't even a discussion. It's everyone should be who they are and not be afraid to do so. And I grew up in a way where I didn't have to feel that, but I can't imagine growing up and having to hide who you are in fear of what would come your way. And we've all felt, our whole team feels that everyone should have a space that's safe enough to be who you are. And so it wasn't even a discussion. It was like, of course we're doing and promoting and trying to raise awareness. Personally, I never understood why there would ever be hate in that area. Since I was little, I've never understood why anyone else cares who someone loves. And that's how our team feels. And we're always going to be allies. And we hope that this can make a safe space for everyone else who is allies to come on board and make it so that this isn't something that is ever a space of hate ever again.
Have you and your team received pushback on it at all? Because, like Devin talked about his tweet still receiving hate, and people are they're speaking directly to a gay man when they're replying to Devin's tweets, but is there, Team Homan probably has the biggest social footprint of any team. Do you receive pushback? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be people who have their opinions, and they're usually keyboard warriors. We get it from any angle. It's not just about this. And it's honestly like we don't have the time for that sort of, like those comments on our page. Like people, you're entitled to your opinion. We disagree. We're still going to push forward with how we feel and what we believe in. And that's all that really matters, is that we are using our voice and we're not afraid to do so. I think that not everyone is going to agree. I think that there's a lot of people who really they might not know a whole lot about having to be in this position where you have hate thrown at you for just trying to be who you are. They don't understand it. And I think that using our voice is trying to just help people understand and maybe think twice before they say something.
Nice.
I think it's really important. Like, Team Homan they're curlers. They're obviously the best in the world, but they're also, it's a massive brand, and you're putting your brand out there by, supporting this. And to Emma, she makes it sound so easy. It's so easy to do this. And that's, of course we appreciate that, but it's a huge thing to put your brand behind something like this, and it's very commendable, and we're really fortunate to have Emma and Team Homan as allies and really huge spot in our sport.
And just to dovetail on that, John, you know, if you've looked at some of the evolution and some of the back and forth with Team Homan and the fans and Emma, I think you've really found your voice and you push back on that. The same people who are homophobic, misogynistic, trying to police how women should be in the field of play, this is all inextricably tied to one another, right? Like, we're talking about people who come from a very privileged place, who have an idea of the world, the way things should be, the way a man should be, and the way a woman should be. And that's all they can think about. And I think we're all sort of talking about the same thing here in the intersectionality between what it means to be human, what it means to be free and loving. And so, you know, when people are out there, Emma, the keyboard warriors, telling Team Homan to smile more because that's what women should do and be nice on the ice, those might be the same people who are homophobic. Like, I don't think that's too far off. So I think it's all tied together.
Yeah. Sorry. Emma, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think while women, we have like hate at us in a different way. But there's a lot more of us that can stand together. So yeah, we have hate when it comes to how people think that we should be on the ice. But that, I think we're trying to make progression there. And I think this is in the same area of trying to make progression. Like, everyone should just be treated equally with respect. And regardless of whether they're a man, a woman, gay, straight, bisexual, no matter, it doesn't matter. Just everyone should be treated with respect. We're playing a sport. Treat us like we are playing a sport, and the athletes that we are, regardless of whatever we are outside of sport.
Devin, I want to direct this at you because Bruce does not like talking about himself. Very humble guy, but you are in the media, and I just think, the coverage of Bruce, and John, you kind of alluded to this as well. We're talking about a multiple-time world champion, an Olympic silver medalist, like world number one, is an out gay man. Is the media coverage for you around that a little disappointing? Because it is, for me, just as a bystander, I kind of feel like, the world should know who Bruce is. And I don't see that. And, you work in media. Do you feel the same about that as well?
I'm sorry, John. I am doing my best. I promise.
Me too.
Yeah. In fact, I recently just traveled to where Bruce lives to try and give him more coverage. So stay tuned on a feature on that. Here's the thing from the media perspective. I think when it's issue of LGBTQ plus issues, when it's issues of race, when it's issues of women in sport, when it's trans issues, media, look at the old guard of sports journalists still. I think there is a very, I'm trying to find the politically correct words here, but there's a lot of white men in the space still. And they have no freaking clue how to write about that, how to ask questions about that, how to engage in those dialogues. So instead of leaning into being uncomfortable and going, you know what, I might screw this up and I don't mean to be offensive, but help me here. That's what I did. I remember early in my career when I had to do really, really hard news stories. That's what I did. I'm coming into this space curious, open-hearted, and if I say something that offends you, I apologize. And I think it's just that energy that when you acknowledge that and you go into that of me not being the expert and I'm going to tell you what I think, and just like, I'm sure John and Bruce, you've been in interviews where it's awkward and the questions are awkward and it feels like they're walking on eggshells and they don't want to say the wrong thing. It is an awkward thing. So you either are vulnerable enough to be awkward and have the conversation, or you just don't have it. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think in a lot of cases, sports media just doesn't know how to have a nuanced conversation about a gay athlete being the best in the world at something. I think it's as simple as that. And I would challenge all journalists in our craft, be better, stop being lazy, and lean into the uncomfortability of maybe getting it wrong, but maybe being curious and then finding a path forward, because that matters. Those stories matter. And it especially matters from that allied perspective of, I might get this wrong, but I'm doing my best.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually. And it's not one that I'd really thought of, but I get asked a lot, especially when there are like media outlets that don't normally cover like Pride Month or things like that. They normally ask if it's okay to like talk about it. And then I'm like, well, of course it is. Like, I've not shared my story for it not to be like, you know, spoken about. So please, yeah, ask away. Like, I'll happily talk to you about this stuff. Like, I could talk about it for days if I wanted to. But yeah, like, it's a very good point that you make there.
Well, and I know, like, you just from podcasting and you know, really podcasting is what kind of opened me up to meeting a lot more like trans and gay people and people on the LGBTQ spectrum. And you know, it's I think there's like even people get tied up in misgendering people, and anytime that's happened to me, like by accident I misgender someone, they correct me and I go, oh, sorry, and then I just don't make that mistake again. And then it's like the easiest. It's actually not that hard of a conversation, but it does feel like people feel like, oh, if I misgender them, then they're going to be so mad and the conversation is over and oh shit, like I'm screwed or whatever. And I think you're right, Devin. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated.
No. So I've been distracted by Bruce's nails for anybody watching.
Well,
Bruce,
okay,
stop waving them. Stop waving them around and giving little hints. Show us them. Show us them.
Yeah, let's
Where's
see
the
the
camera?
nails.
There's the camera.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
lovely.
Wow. Those are really good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that, Bruce, because, you know, I did notice at the Players' Championship, you were also playing with painted nails. And I think that's the first time we've sort of seen that. Is that just you feeling a little more comfortable expressing yourself? Or was that just I painted my nails and I don't care? Like, did you feel like you had to think about that before it happened?
I think it was Emma.
Yeah,
Emma made me do it.
Hello Taco, our sponsor.
Oh, shout out to the sponsor. There
Yeah,
you
here we go.
go.
They came and watched in Toronto, and she always has nail polish on her. And so she was at the bar across the street at McKibben's, seeing like who she could get to have their nails painted. And Bruce was there, and then kept on the nail polish, and she was very excited about it.
I was down. I didn't really resist too much. I was like, yeah, sure, like I'll come over. And then yeah, I was more than happy to keep it on. But I know other people that were like scratching it off with like knives and stuff, and I was like, you're just gonna ruin your nail.
Yeah.
Well, I did also I did also get absorbed in the Hollow Taco tornado this year when Emma and Rachel painted my nails as well. I just like I guess when I was watching it, I felt like, you know, there are people out there who will say, you know, the keyboard warriors, like, I don't care if you're gay, just like don't throw it in my face or whatever, you know. And I feel like, you know, when people watch you curl, they're not necessarily thinking, oh, there goes Bruce and he's gay and he's curling. There goes John and he's gay and he's curling. But I feel like when you wear nail polish when you're curling, maybe that does add a little bit more to expressing your sexuality in a way that's a little more visible. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And like I've worn rainbow laces for the last 4 seasons, I think, and as much as they're covered up because of the curling shoe design, like I'm very proud to be gay and like an elite curler. And you know, I like to kind of, you know, like paint my nails or, you know, have a skin treatment or whatever. But if that's what people are judging, I guess it's just down to what they want to judge. Like I don't care. Like I'll do it because I want to. It's not like I'm gonna freak out if someone writes something mean on social media just because, you know, they don't like it. It's not about you. It's about how I feel and how I want to be feeling in that moment.
I love that. And John, I want to ask you, and Devin sort of talked about this, and you even brought it up a little bit earlier about how you're getting older and you have now been doing these Pride Month interviews and whatever for 10 years. But there was an interesting article in The Athletic recently where they talked to some gay athletes, Jason Collins and Robbie Rogers, they're NBA and MLS players respectively, or they were, and they kind of mentioned that they don't have a problem continuing to talk about it because it's important. And Bruce, you kind of mentioned that as well. Are you in that space too still, John? Like, I know it's been 10 years. You and I I've interviewed you specifically like 3 times about your sexuality. Is it something you feel is important to continue to do, or is there a little part of you that wishes like it just didn't have to be the story?
Well, I mean, it does. I wish it wasn't. Yeah, I wish it didn't have to be the story, but it does. Until we're not seeing, youth kicked out of their homes for being gay, feeling scared to play in team sports, afraid to be in the locker room, just to be afraid to step into a curling club to play in a league. Until those, I would say, fears, worrisomes coming out to your parents and your family, till those, I think, we don't have those feelings, and that's not in the world, I think, or until we can go to every country. Okay, how about until we can go to every country? I think the conversations need to be had. I'm happy to have them, happy to talk more and more about them. And I encourage people that are, listening to this right now going, like, why? Like, message me, because I'd love to talk more about it.
Love that. This was very interesting. Jess Zabo, our head of marketing and guru of stats, told me this very interesting stat, that according to Sponsor Pulse, that's the sort of back end that they use to figure out who's engaging with what content. 35% of Canadian curling fans last year who engaged with some form of curling content identify as LGBTQ+. 35%, which that feels like a very staggering number to me. Maybe Bruce, we'll start with you, but I want everybody to kind of weigh in on this. What is it about curling that has, in a strange way, I think, made it like curling might be the most gay sport? What do you think that's down to, Bruce?
I think it goes back to the community that we create. Like, curling at its core is a very social sport. And a lot of these pride leagues that you guys have in Canada are focused on not only the sport, but just like having a good time. And it really creates that fun environment for people to be wanting to be involved in. So I think it really comes down to like just the community as a curling core, I guess, is what I'm saying. And then having a space for people that want to be a part of a sport coming into it. And then, yeah, it's those two things, I believe.
Emma, I'll kick it over to you as the ally here. What is it? What is it about curling? I'm sure you've encountered many LGBTQ+ fans in your time. You talked about Ottawa being involved in the gay league community there. What is it about curling?
I think it's what Bruce said, a lot in the community, and having these leagues, it's like a safe space for everyone to get together and know that they can be who they are without fear of hate or judgment. And I think that not every sport is like that. And because it's such a social sport, it's a place where everyone not only gets together to curl, but then the whole day is at the Ottawa, it's like almost a full Sunday. It's just devoted to, and there's multiple times because the sheets are full, and it's really cool to see. Like, I can't even get practice ice on Sundays after like 11 a.m. because it's full. And that makes me really proud to be part of a club that is full on Sundays, and they call it the Rainbow League, is full. I think that's so cool. But I also have to say that, like Bruce and John, like, you guys also coming out and like saying your truth and saying like how, and being brave to start, has made other curlers and even people who haven't tried curling feel like it is a safe space, and then look for that community elsewhere. And I look just to be like, where can I find that? Whether it's like at the Ottawa or in Toronto, I think there's a bunch of leagues. Like, I think that creates a safe environment for people to feel like they can be welcomed. And I think that you two have a lot to do with that. So.
Devin, I will modify the question slightly for you. You've just taken over in the last couple months, and I know it's been a lot as the head of content for the curling group. And this is a content-based question. The idea that 35% of people who engage with curling content are somewhere on the LGBTQ plus spectrum. You know, you're kind of in a unique position to have a big say in how the content moves forward. So maybe what are some things that you are looking forward to kind of make that content a little bit more inclusive? Or maybe what are some of the little things we're not doing right now that, as you know, a cis straight guy who is involved in a lot of curling content, is maybe missing about how that community is being served by the greater sort of curling content umbrella?
Quite frankly, I don't think anything's going to change from my end of things, because my storytelling has always been rooted in diversity and inclusion and my lived experiences. You know, of course, you know, my background with CBC for 2 decades. I received a lot of pushback because, you know, there's this idea of objectivity and that being the currency of journalism. And yet we are all humans who, when we approach our story or our vocation or our places of work, we all have lived experiences that we bring to the table. Yes, there is the fundamental basis of storytelling and content sharing, but I'm also a gay man who looks at the world in a different way than a cis straight white male, right? And that has been the North Star for my coverage. So love it or hate it, I'm the head of content now, and that
snap,
and that is the lens that I'm going to see our content. Listen, for too long, sports has had a single voice telling stories, creating broadcasts, creating rules around leagues, and you're only as good as the people who are around those board tables and making decisions. That's changing. It doesn't surprise me that the number is 35%. And just one last point, you know, I got some interesting research numbers from our Olympic viewing. And it's interesting because the audience tendencies for how they consume sports are actually more aligned with the way the athletes see the world and their morals and ethics and how they show up in the field of play. Fans are watching because of that more than the sport. And I think that's fascinating, because I think that's what that tells us is 35%, those people feel safe coming into the curling space. And all you had to do is be in that sold out arena on Pride Night in Toronto. And it was just like this joyous, different sporting environment. You don't get that at an NHL game. That's why they come to curling, because it's a party. And then they got to go to a drag show on the concourse. Like, you get that in women's hockey and you get that in curling. That's why marginalized communities are coming to our sport, because it is safe. It is a celebration. It is a family. Full stop. That's what the content is going to reflect.
Love it. John, we were talking very positively about curling's relationship with the LGBTQ plus community. But as we know, not everything's going to be perfect. You know, as someone who has come out almost 10 years ago now and has been in this space for so long, where do you think curling still has to go? Because I think all of us would say it's not perfect. In your eyes, where does the sport still need to get to in order to become like really and truly that safe space for anybody who, you know, maybe doesn't identify with, you know, the quote unquote norm?
I'm going to throw it at Devin. I think a lot of it's going to come from the content, and there's a lot of pressure here now on you, Devin. I'm just kidding. I think the more voices that we have, having Emma on the panel with us today, an ally, that's how we're going to get there. Brucey continuing to win. Bruce, keep winning. Okay.
let me win when I play you.
But
What is the head-to-head record?
let's not go there.
I don't actually know. What is it,
Yeah,
John?
I don't, let's not talk about it. But I think that's that's so important, is going to be how we continue with our voices, and as Devin said, he's ready for it and to get in there. And I think that's just going to be, and the more people that come forward, the more brands like Team Homan that help. It's going to take the whole group for us to move a mountain and to go there. I've always said that it's very, I'm just trying to make a little difference, but if we can all make a little difference, that's obviously going to be massive.
Bruce, I'll ask the same question of you. I think especially because we're talking a lot about Canada, and even the way you framed some of your answers, you've also kind of pointed to Canada as being sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to this. You're a Scottish guy. You are going to be one of the captains of Team Europe coming up in Rock League. Maybe speak a little bit to where it might need to get to, not inside Canada, that, would be an improvement in your eyes.
Well, I honestly believe that you guys are like role models within this community, and it's something that I've wanted to start for a long time, and finding the right people to do it in Scotland has, like, I think I've found the right people. It's just about now doing it, and it's about finding the right time, trying to create a network within the people that do participate in these leagues in Canada as well, and encourage them to come and support the ones that might potentially happen in Scotland or in Europe further down the line. And that's a real big dream of mine. Like, obviously I still want to have success within the sport, but it's not just about that anymore. It's about the social impact that we can now achieve through the platform that I've been given, and that's something that I'm really aiming for in the next kind of 4 to 5 years.
Devin, before I ask the same question of you, I have looked it up. Bruce is only up 7-4 on John head to head. So it's actually not, the way you were acting was like it was a complete wipeout. And, so not bad, John. 7-4, pretty good.
Okay.
Devin, I'll ask the same question of you. You also deal with many other sports for CBC. You cover the Olympics, which truly you're, covering 20 to 30 sports at a time. Where do you think curling can get to as far as being a model for those other sports?
I think curling's leading the way in a lot of respects. I think throughout this podcast, like we've talked about, I think there are so many reasons that has allowed it to forge ahead. And yet we can't just sort of be, okay, I kind of get a little icky when I hear, well, curling has always been so welcoming, or I don't like that, because it hasn't been, because we know that it's a predominantly white sport. And I think there's a ton of work to be done in that case. And I think until Canada is reflected on the ice, I don't think we're ever going to be where we need to be in this sport. So I don't think we should just sort of rest on this lazy cliche throwaway line of curling is always welcoming, and I've never had a problem in the curling club. But because the people who are saying I've never had a problem in a curling club are the people that wouldn't, obviously. So that doesn't hold water for me at all. I think we have to continue to be brave, and we will be, the people on this podcast. But it does take everyone, from the sponsors. What are the sponsors doing to step up? Not in a performative way. I've seen a lot of rainbow posters and paints and things, sport organizations putting up the rainbow, and then suddenly July 1st comes and all the rainbows are gone. So I'm tired of the performative stuff. We've got to live this 24/7, 365. It's going to take all of us from the top down. I pledge my full support of living it and walking it every day to help amplify the voices. And I would also challenge curling fans. I mean, Google's free. Educate yourself. Don't put it on John and Bruce to always have to educate. Do some work, take some initiative, and be a part of all of us collectively moving forward. I think that's where we can go. And like I said, I'll do my part to reflect the great people. I just marvel at you guys. Like, it's such a privilege because you're so wonderfully articulate. We're so blessed to have you in the sport. And I do think through your sharing, you do change hearts and minds. So more of that.
Emma, I'll ask the question of you from an allied perspective, because your team is, as far as we know, all cis straight white women, but you're very much on the side of the United We Curl movement and all of that. What would you like to see out of other teams that are maybe at your level that aren't doing some of the things that your team has been doing in order to really further this idea that curling can become the leader for becoming an LGBTQ plus safe space?
Well, one thing that I thought was interesting right off the bat is just because Goldline was so heavily involved with getting United We Curl going, it wasn't related to Goldline. They were also trying to help grow, and like they were allies in that sense. But other equipment sponsors and their teams think that they would be supporting Goldline by supporting United We Curl. And that was something that I was so shocked to hear, because it's a completely separate thing. And you can be a supporter of inclusivity in our space without worrying about sponsorship. So I thought that I wanted to say that, because I think that everyone can just be pro inclusivity without worrying about whether you're using this broom or this broom. So that's one thing. And I think just like from a second perspective, like asking questions, I think a lot of people are either scared to say the wrong thing or don't know about something. And so they don't say anything, or they don't defend a comment or correct a comment that should never have been said in the first place. I think it's better to say something, even if maybe it's not the perfect thing to say, versus not speaking up. I think that's what I learned years ago. I was scared to say the wrong thing. And then someone told me that it's better to say something and be corrected than to just not say anything at all, because you're not you're not helping make any progress in the space if you just sit back and let things be said, or someone get hate and not act on it. So I think that that's something else I would say, is be brave enough to speak up when something should be said, and don't be afraid to say the wrong thing. If you're genuine, it'll all go from a good place, and everyone will be understanding, but it will make a difference.
Very well said. I want to finish this, Bruce, by coming to you. I think there will be, people listening to this podcast who, are thinking about their own LGBTQ plus journey. Maybe that's a younger person, maybe it's an adult. What would you say? Is there a message for maybe a younger curler or someone who doesn't feel comfortable coming out or is unsure about the next steps? What would you say to them to, I don't know, make them feel good and comfortable?
I guess it just starts with, like, there is a space for you in this sport or within any sport, and it doesn't have to be the elite side. It can be grassroots. There's communities out there that are very open and welcoming and want to have you involved in sport. I think for me, like, surrounding myself with people that I knew had my back was really important for me when I was coming out. And no matter what I said to them in that moment, I knew that they were always going to support me and try and find those people. Like, they're not actually that hard to find. It might seem like a daunting thing, but if you find that one or the two people that can help you through a moment like that, then they're going to be friends for life, I swear.
Well said. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Pride panel. I think it's amazing for the sport. I think, as has been said many times, you're all role models, and I think it's a great thing for our sport. We appreciate you being here, and you know what? Enjoy the rest of the summer. Enjoy Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, John. Cheers.
And there you have it. I mean, what more can we say? What a phenomenal chat. Thanks so much to Bruce, John, Devin, Emma. Very important voices in this sport. I know, just speaking for myself, very proud to call them colleagues, friends, and very proud to also be an ally and to be a part of this sport that really does think about its inclusive nature and how we can continue to get better. And I think there were just so many amazing things said in that conversation. I felt very lucky to be a part of it. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And look, that's not all for Broom Brothers. This summer, we are actually going to be bringing you Broom Brothers episodes all summer long. I am going to be sitting down one-on-one with each of the Rock League captains. We know that there's 6 of them. I'm going to be sitting down with each of them over the course of the summer, talking to them about Rock League, about what they're getting up to in the off season, just about curling in general. They're going to be short chats, but really fun chats. So don't unsubscribe. Don't think, oh, curling season's over, I'm not going to get any podcast content. We are going to be bringing you episodes. They probably won't be on any sort of set schedule, but maybe every 2 weeks or so over the course of the summer, you're going to get a chat with me and a Rock League captain. I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Don't forget, we are coming up on the All-Star game, the TCG All-Star game. If you are in Canada, it's airing on Sportsnet on Canada Day, July 1st. A lot of you are asking when that was going to be coming out, why it wasn't streaming. The reason it wasn't streaming is because we wanted to put together a really beautiful package. It includes the skills game, the pro-am game, the all-star game, some of the features that we did when we were down in Nashville. We had an amazing time. Can't wait for you to see that. So again, if you're in Canada, that'll be out July 1st on Sportsnet, and then it will be available globally shortly after that. So keep your eyes peeled to all the Grand Slam of Curling socials. All the information will be coming out on that. And you can also follow us. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok. The Broom Brothers, just look us up, find us. As I said, we will be here with you all summer long, so don't go anywhere. Hope you are having a great summer. Hope you're having a great Pride Month as well. And I will see you back here very soon with the first of my interviews with the Rock League captains. Take care.